Hello and welcome to Palace Confidential, your weekly look at all things royal, brought to you from the Mail. So much to talk about, including tensions over the coronation and whether or not Charles has snubbed Harry, as well as some of your comments and questions. And here to talk through all of this is the Mail on Sunday's editor-at-large, Charlotte Griffiths, and of course, the Daily Mail's diary editor, Richard Eden. And we'll hear from a couple of friends of the show later on. A reminder that you can click the link above, there it is there, for some of the items that we and the royals are wearing, and as always, check the description below for more information. First up, the lines between the worlds of royalty and celebrity get ever more blurred, but one extended member of the royal family crossed the line completely this week by announcing that he would be joining the cast of the reality show I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. That's right, former England rugby player Mike Tindall, who is married to the King's niece, Zarah Philips, will head out next month to the Australian jungle to record the series. Richard, this is extraordinary. What was your initial response?
I thought it was hilarious when I heard this.
Well, it might well be. Yeah.
My first thought was, will he end up competing with Harry and Meghan's reality show, you know, Keeping Up with the Sussexes, or I think as the docu-series, as they call it, you know, will we have them...
Maybe Harry and Meghan should have a few snakes and spiders just chucked in.
I think their production value might be a bit higher, but we'll see.
I suspect this will be fun. I mean, from what I've heard, Tindall was encouraged by his mate, James Haskell, another former England rugby player who went on I'm a Celebrity, and I think it went pretty well. So I think he's not too worried. He should be. They do some pretty unpleasant things on this show, eating these grubs and stuff.
I could never. But also, there's a lot of time where you're just sitting around in that jungle chatting away. I imagine journalists like yourselves will be earwigging every single bit you can get your hands on.
Definitely we will. Yeah. But he is very good at marking his words and choosing his words carefully. But maybe he's underestimated. It's literally 24/7 filming. He's really good when you see him on the news in the morning sometimes. You know, he's very well scripted, and he'll drop a little nugget of royal information, but never too much. And don't forget, he's actually really good friends with Prince William, so he really won't want to upset Prince William by revealing too much. However, I don't know, I couldn't be filmed 24/7 without putting my foot in it a few times.
No.
It's fascinating, isn't it, to think that... Do you think this would have happened if the Queen was still alive? It feels like something that she would have had a view on.
I have to be honest, I don't think he would have done this if the Queen had still been alive. I really do. I'm sure he's been asked many times to be on this programme or other similar ones and would have said no. Because, you know, he does a regular podcast. It's about rugby, but we often have snippets about his personal life, and they always make interesting stories. We've discussed a few of them on this programme. So, as Charlotte says, when you're in there all the time and chatting away, there will be stories to come out of it. But he's pretty media savvy. I don't think he'll say anything that's too upsetting.
He's married to somebody who isn't an HRH, and he's independently famous for being an England rugby player.
Yeah.
So I kind of don't blame him. I think he can go in there if he wants.
If I was Zarah, I'd be a little bit nervous though, because they always have like these beautiful models or actresses on this programme. It's really intense. You're living with them for 2 weeks. I think, you know, they talk about the Strictly curse with Strictly Come Dancing contestants. But
look, I'm sure he's a lovely guy, but he himself is no supermodel. So I think I'm not sure about that.
No, but he's quite a charming guy.
There's no Strictly curse with I'm a Celebrity. They look awful. They're rough, they're starving, they've got no makeup. I mean, the occasional bikini scene looks quite good.
That's the other thing that fascinates me about this, is that, you know, even the most good-natured person can become a bit ratty-tempered in there.
Yeah.
So that's because they're
That's
hungry.
what I'm more worried about. Or he might have a really disgusting bathroom habit or something. Because, you know, they film them going into the loo
Well, our
cubicles.
viewers might have seen the royal biographer, Lady Colin Campbell, you know, and I'm a Celebrity, and that, you know, she certainly made quite an impression when she was in.
What if he
Watch
picks
this
his nose?
space. Do you think this is the start of a bit of a floodgate, Charlotte, that some royals will start to test the boundaries with, you know, a slimmed-down monarchy, King Charles too busy, you know, keeping his eye on everything?
Not really. I think Harry and Meghan might have opened that door a little bit sooner than Mike Tindall, with their, like, welcome to the inner workings of our lives. But I do think, actually, you're right, that it's unlikely he would have said yes while the Queen was alive. So there might be a little... I could see Zarah on Strictly, and she's not an HRH. They are going to have to think of a way to make money.
So they're not bankrolled by Grandpa Charles?
I don't think Zarah would be, no.
Remember, we had sort of flirtation with light entertainment in the past when the royals appeared in the 80s on
It's a Royal Knockout.
And we had Andrew and Fergie and Prince Edward.
And that went so well.
It was seen as a bit of a disaster.
The disaster was that was created by a royal who doesn't know anything about TV, so that's why it was so bad as well.
Yeah, Edward
Whereas
was
I'm a
involved in
celebrity,
it, wasn't he?
it's a good concept and it works, you know.
True. Well, let's hope it's a bit more dignified.
Let's have a quick chat about Prince Harry, seeing as we do like to on this show. Another royal story this week, Richard, you saying that on the twisty road to his book publication, there's been another development.
Well, this was really interesting. This was Geoffrey Archer, Lord Archer, best-selling novelist, very well connected in the publishing world, and he was saying that Harry is writing a new chapter completely. We've had all these stories about will the book be delayed, will there be changes? Well, from what he was saying, it will be dealt with by a new chapter. So that will be on the Queen's funeral and the events surrounding it. But it will give him Harry a chance to address, you know, those stories about him being offended by, you know, not being able to wear his uniform and then not having the ER letters on his, you know, his epaulets and that sort of thing.
But that's a different story to the suggestion a couple of weeks ago that he wants to make major edits to the whole thing.
Well, this could be a way of making sure all the tenses are correct. It's all referring to the Queen sort of in the past, and then having that new chapter. It could be quite a sort of elegant way to deal with it, but also it would suggest, as other reports have said, that the book is being delayed, so it may come out next spring rather than next month, as we've been led to believe. But we're still in the dark because the publisher is just not saying anything at all.
And maybe the publisher doesn't know.
Yeah, so I was thinking.
Maybe. But let's have a quick chat about William and Kate, Charlotte, who took over a radio show this week. How do you think they did? They were talking about mental health?
They were. I thought Kate did really well. I could see a marked difference in how she's been on TV. I know it was radio, but she was actually being filmed as well. I just thought she looked much more natural, and she's finally getting into a really good place when she's on these media appearances.
Well, compared to what? I wasn't aware that you were critical of her in the past.
She used to be a little stilted
right.
On TV, and a little nervous and sort of funny pauses, and sometimes William would swoop in and rescue her when they did joint appearances. But there was none of that with Radio 1. I thought she spoke really well. And then, very interestingly, William alluded to sudden changes and how your mental health copes with sudden changes. And so people assumed maybe he meant the death of his mother.
Well, I mean, that's a cataclysmic thing to happen to a child.
Yeah, and fair enough. And of course, the Harry thing, which has been really bad for his mental health because he's lost his best friend and his sort of brother in arms, you know. And so I think his mental health has been affected seriously.
And, you know, two quite seismic, painful events in full public view, really.
Yeah, and we underestimate because Harry takes up so much airspace talking about his mental health. And William, you know, we sort of forget. William looks tough and he's going to be the king, but he's a human being and he's suffered a lot, really, in his life. So, yeah, I think it was nice, a little tiny chink, and he did it in such a nice, subtle way that, you know, Harry wouldn't be capable of, because Harry has to bludgeon everything onto the airways, but he just dropped it in very subtly and just reminded us all that he's going through all this too, you know. Let's
have a look at some of your comments now. We love getting them, we really do. First up is one on our discussion about who will keep the family in line now that Charles is king. Patrick YK says, before the Queen passed away, she would be the peacemaker. Now, if they go too far, William definitely will cut them off, even if King Charles does not. Now a follow-up on something I think Rebecca was talking about last week with royal selfies. Office Yoga, I'm not sure that is their real name, but if it is, that's magnificent, says, I loved when King Charles made his first appearance after the Queen's death and his protection officer was pushing the phones away and said, enjoy the moment. That is actually really, yes, that's a good observation. And we don't like to blow around trumpet too much here, but we're so grateful for all your comments too. And here's one from S. Morgan, who wrote after last week's show, never disappoints, especially love this particular panel. Also love how you are making things more interactive, including audience questions. So definitely keep them coming. We will be, speaking of questions, we will be answering some later on. Keep those coming in and leave your questions or thoughts in the comments or write to us on social media at Mail Plus, or you can always email palace@mailplus.co.uk. Now, after much speculation, we have a date for the coronation. It will be on the 6th of May next year. The announcement has provoked a flurry of stories and intrigue, naturally, which we turn to now. The Daily Mail's royal editor looks at a couple of controversies that are in today's papers.
So we have a front page exclusive in today's Daily Mail, which is that palace aides may have to actually axe their original plans to have Camilla, the Queen Consort, crowned with the Queen Mother's crown, which actually contains a very controversial diamond, the Koh-i-Noor. It was acquired by the British in the 19th century. I say acquired because the British say it was given to them as part of the Treaty of Lahore. The Indians say that it was actually forcibly taken from the 10-year-old heir to the Punjabi throne, whose mother was being imprisoned by the British at the time. So there has been a lot of debate about the provenance of this diamond. It's not actually only India that claims ownership of it. Other countries do. Afghanistan, Iran, even the Taliban have claimed ownership of it at one time or another. And there have been long calls for this diamond to be returned to India. And as experts said to me yesterday, you know, this kind of debate bubbles up and bubbles down over the years. And while that diamond is kept behind thick glass walls in the Tower of London, it becomes not such a big talking point. But of course, the minute it's taken out and put upon the head of a member of the modern royal family, it becomes a very live issue again. I think the chances of the Queen Consort being crowned with the Queen Mother's crown containing this particular diamond is really unlikely. I think what they'll do is either take it out, because the Koh-i-Noor is contained in a detachable platinum mount, and they will take it out and replace it with something else, or maybe even use a different crown entirely. They have quite a few at their disposal. I think King Charles will have a massive say in this, and I actually think this is probably being driven by him. The crux of my story is that kind of 4 or 5 years ago, when the whole issue of the Duchess of Cornwall being crowned alongside her husband's side as Queen Consort was raised, the plan was very much to use the Queen Mother's crown with the Koh-i-Noor diamond in it. And something has changed markedly in the last few years due to these political sensitivities. And I've no doubt the King is a very thoughtful man. He's visited India many times and no doubt has discussed this issue with various Indian head of states. I've no doubt that he will have a great say in this decision-making process. Another interesting aspect this week is the oil that's used to anoint the monarch at Westminster Abbey. And obviously we haven't really discussed this because we haven't needed to for 70 years. But obviously now fresh light is being shed on this. And actually one of the things that's emerged is that the oil contains a substance that's obtained from civet cats, which is a big cat in Africa. But there's great concern because there's allegations that it's obtained in quite cruel circumstances. The animals are kept into captivity, they're held by the neck while their anal glands are squeezed and the oil is extracted. And PETA, the animal rights organisation, has expressed its concern and discussed that this process goes on and has appealed to Buckingham Palace to find a different way of creating this holy oil to anoint the King when it comes to May next year.
Rebecca English there. Well, it's also been suggested that the coronation will be a simpler affair than those the country has witnessed in the past. But that isn't popular with everybody. More than 70% of readers of Mail Plus said they wanted more fanfare. Basha Briggs, a friend of the royals, shares that view, and she gave us her thoughts.
Charles, at the age of 74, will be the oldest crowned king in British history. A slimmed-down version would just diminish the magnitude of the occasion, because one has to remember that royalty is here by the consent of the people, and we've got to keep the people happy. By that I mean the people of England, who we underestimate just how very popular the royal family is. The thought of the dignitaries being dressed in morning suits or lounge suits, I mean, that's horrendous. It's an appalling idea. I can't stop laughing about it because, you know, I want to see ceremonial robes. I want to see ceremonial robes. I want to see the nobility with their coronets. I want ermine, you know, the velvet cloaks, and I mean the lot, bells and whistles, and cannons, of course, lots and lots of cannons. England's, especially the military uniforms, they are the best in the world. When you think of the pageantry that was on show during the Queen's funeral, people like that sort of thing. When I say people, I mean the world, and people are fascinated by England. and it's wonderful for tourism because then they come here and the money goes into the public coffers. The people want a celebration. It's got to be celebration, because we've just been through a poxy horrible lockdown. People are miserable, the cost of living crisis and everything. So people want dancing in the street, and they've shown it by enjoying the Jubilee celebrations. And then, of course, with the Queen's funeral, that was incredibly sad. But now it's time for a celebration.
Basha Briggs there. We'll discuss Rebecca's story in just a moment. But before that, Charlotte, you wrote about this at the weekend. What is the thinking behind a simplified ceremony?
I think it's time. So the first one was 4 hours long, and there was all sorts of doffing of caps that went on for hours and hours. Apparently bishops go up to the monarch, and they used to go up one at a time.
And how many are there?
Lots.
Yeah.
Well, I think there was 4 in this particular segment, and it was explained to me that now they're all going to go up at the same time. Easy. And they've just made lots of little cuts like that all the way through, and they've shaved off 3 hours, which is, I think, a great thing because, you know, the Queen was much younger then, for a start, so she was probably able to sit still for 4 hours. I don't know if Charles could. He's got a bad back, you know.
Oh, dear.
And also the audience, you know, the people in the actual sort of ceremony, plus the TV audience. It's much more TV focused this time. It was only just broadcast last time.
Yes, yeah.
So I don't know.
This is the edited highlights.
This is the edited highlights.
Now,
the short version.
I'm going to take a wild guess, Richard, that you are much more in the Basha camp of like wanting some fanfare.
Well, it certainly sounds very sensible to have a shorter ceremony if you can. Yeah, there's no need for it to be a 4-hour epic. We can cope. Come on, we have Palace Confidentials usually 20 minutes, half an hour.
What more fanfare does one need?
I think an hour or so would be fine. But in terms of the pageantry, the celebration, I think that should be the full thing. And as Basha says, I'd like to see the lords in their ermine and.
Well, yes. So what is the thinking? Is it either or? Because if it's going to be on television, it's going to have to look great.
We want the colour.
Yeah.
Westminster Abbey will be packed. There's still, according to Charlotte's report, it'll still be 2,000 people, just as it was for the Queen's funeral.
Yeah.
And we'll have the parade and everything. So I think it still sounds like it will be a great spectacle.
And it'll still be colourful because the reason they didn't do it in the winter is because a lot of the army officers have to wear grey coats in the winter, and they thought that would look really grey on TV. Plus, the sky's grey in the winter, obviously. So they're aiming for colour and pageantry. They're just not going completely over the top.
Now, not for the first time I'm asking, help a feeble-minded Aussie out. Basha mentioned ermine. What? And I understand there's a story there.
Okay, so ermine. So 70 years ago, they all wore these amazing coronation robes with ermine. Now, ermine, they've probably disintegrated. They've been in a box for 70 years, so many of them won't have lasted the test of time.
Well, same as the people, yeah.
They had to make a decision. Should we make new coronation robes? So you have to kill 30 ermine per coronation robe, and you can only kill them at a certain time. I think it's in November, in the winter. And the fur is grey unless it's a certain time of year, and then it's white. That's the time to murder them en masse so that you can decorate your robes with
I
them.
don't think we say murder, I think we say slaughter, yeah.
But you know what I mean? If they had to do this, if they had to make fresh coronation robes from scratch, I think there would have been a bit of a backlash.
Can we use fake fur?
They probably could have done. I wonder if they thought of that. From what I was hearing,
surely
fake fur was not brought up.
Charles is not up for mass murder of.
No, but exactly. So they're not making new coronation robes. They'll probably use some parliamentary robes in some cases, and in other cases, people will wear
Primark,
morning suits.
There.
Well, can't we launch a designer robe competition this time? It's not till May. We could have some, all the fashion designers around Britain launching some
Oh God,
fancy
that would be
robe
an
competition.
absolute disaster.
I think that's a great idea.
Joseph in his
I'll be the
Technicolor dream
judge.
coat.
Yeah, sounds good to me. Now, Richard, let's turn to Rebecca's piece now. What did you make of the news about Camilla's crown?
I thought it's an absolutely fascinating story, and my first reaction was, what a shame. This is the crown which was worn by all the other Queen Consorts, by the Queen Mother, not just
so laden
her
with
husband's.
controversy, though, in a more woke and more enlightened world.
royal family should not go woke. It's crazy. If they go down this route, there'll be no end to it.
Is it being woke, or is it just being more culturally sensitive than we've been in the past?
I don't think there's a problem. Look, the Supreme Court of India in 2016 ruled that the diamond wasn't stolen. It was a gift from India. That was accepted then. And so there's no reason to think that there's a problem with it, in my opinion. Sure, there'll always be people causing problems. Since I tweeted about this, I've had loads of abuse from people saying, you don't know your history, or it's a scandal. No, it's not. It's part of the crown jewels. That they have these jewels. They're part of our heritage. So wear them.
I think so. Keep them in a museum. That's where they belong. They can still be part of our heritage in a museum. I think actually wearing them is taking things to the next level.
I mean, it seems like, why have it if we're too embarrassed to use it and display it as a country?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's absolutely right. I think, they do need to think seriously about what's going to happen next to it. And there's also this thing about the royal family being embarrassed to be kind of bling. I mean, there's another aspect to this. It's the biggest diamond you've ever seen in your entire life.
Yeah, how big is it for those who... a lot of American viewers might not know.
I think it's probably the size of a large
It's about
golf... It's
golf ball size, right?
Yeah, it's like 150 carats.
Yeah.
I can't imagine Camilla wearing it. It's not her style.
But there just aren't many opportunities to see these wonderful jewels on real people. You can go and visit the crown jewels and you see them there, but to actually see it as it should be seen, worn at a coronation, would be such a great opportunity. Look, how about, we have some sort of great compromise where perhaps, it could go on display in India afterwards, or some of the other,
Then there'd be a whole furore about getting it back from India, and how long does it go to India for? And the act of retrieving it back would also cause more controversy.
Do you think?
True.
I think so.
Not if it was all agreed beforehand.
It's contested, and it's not just India who thinks it belongs to them.
No, there's Iran, Pakistan, Afghanistan.
That's what it's likened to political grenade. I mean, it's seriously controversial. Everyone wants a piece of it. Actually, I want a piece of it.
Yeah, a piece of it would sort out my mortgage quite nicely, thank you. But it does feel like a different approach from the royal family as well, doesn't it? Is it the right one? Well, you don't think it's the right one, but it seems like they are more sensitive to these things.
Yeah, but it's not just the Koh-i-Noor. Honestly, because of the colonial sort of legacy, of the royal family, that there's stories behind so many different jewels. I mean, there was one tiara that I think Meghan had expressed an interest in wearing, and then it was pointed out that there were Russian connections, which was all a bit awkward, and so it was decided she wouldn't wear that one. But there's loads of history behind all the different crown jewels. I think you just have to accept it's part of history. If we go down this route of saying, we've got to keep up with the times, the royal family is anachronistic. That's kind of the whole point. That's part of its charm. Don't try and make it too modern.
I think they're very confused as well. They're trying to dance this line between being, having a lot of pageantry, being bling, and then not, and being modern. It's a difficult line to tread.
Well, I look forward to hearing your comments on that very soon. But let's turn to some of your questions now from previous episodes. Dawn Walker says, I love your show. Well, thank you, Dawn. I would like Richard to be my neighbour. This one's going to run and run. I like rule followers and I like straight talk. Well, that's our Dick. But Dawn's question is, do you think the Prince and Princess of Wales will move into Windsor? What do you think?
Well, they've already moved into Adelaide Cottage, which is on the Windsor estate. And then there's the question of, will they move into the castle itself? We know that I think Harry and Meghan had their eye on moving into the castle.
But did they now?
They were ushered away to Frogmore Cottage.
Yeah.
But it really depends what King Charles wants to do himself, because traditionally the monarch would live at Windsor. It's a big castle and they use it for entertaining. So it would seem slightly odd for William and Catherine to live there. It would normally be the monarch, but we'll see. Maybe it would be a reflection of their high standing, the esteem in which Charles and Camilla hold them in.
And close to Legoland for the kids. Sharon M. writes with another question about royal moves. The question is, has the King moved into Buckingham Palace? And if so, what will happen to Clarence House? Charlotte, this is one that's quite fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the question should be, no offence, Sharon, what will happen to Buckingham Palace? Because he's very fond of Clarence House and everyone in it, and not so attached to Buckingham Palace. So I think if there are any cuttings to be made from the staff, it's going to happen at Buckingham Palace. And he's not going to move in there anytime soon. I think he's just going to use it for state occasions, meeting dignitaries, and I think he'll hold on to Clarence House. I think that's his home. He's been there for a few years now.
What will happen to Buckingham Palace? Will they just make it one of the biggest museums in the country?
That's the theory. That is actually something they might do. I can't really imagine him living there. They call it, what do they call it, the room above the shop. I can't imagine him living there. He's just not that keen on the place. And as we know, he's making Balmoral into a sort of museum. So maybe he'll follow suit with Buckingham Palace.
Well, I think as viewers of The Crown will know, I think the Queen and Prince Philip didn't want to live at Buckingham Palace either. You know, it's not very
That's true.
appealing.
I'd forgotten about that. Yeah.
The electrics are all going
They had been
wrong,
at Clarence
the
House themselves.
Yeah, it's not actually that nice.
But they
people
were
say.
told. It was Churchill told them, you know, you've got to live there. That is the home of the royal family. So we'll see what happens.
He's got some decisions to make. I think he's probably made quite a lot of the decisions. He's just got to bide his time to make the announcements.
OK, well, Sol Lamano writes, love your show. Thank you so much. Would love to hear about Princess Anne's under-the-radar trip to New York. She had like 4 events in the one day before flying back commercial. Like, what a champ. I like that like in there. We asked Rebecca for her thoughts on this a little earlier.
She is, and actually one of the criticisms often levelled at me and other royal correspondents is we don't write enough about Princess Anne. But what people forget is Princess Anne doesn't actually want us writing about her. So these trips are actually never announced in advance. We only ever find out about them when they happen. They are indeed very under the radar. And she was there as a guest of the English Speaking Union. She went to a gala dinner. She was also seen riding the Staten Island ferry in a very low-key way for a member of the royal family. And that is the way she likes it. She likes to go out there, do what she needs to do with minimum fuss. And I think that's all right when it's Princess Anne. But I think obviously other members of the royal family do need to be more visible. They do need the media there because they need to be going out there and publicly banging the drum for UK PLC abroad. So I think it's, you know, it's horses for courses, isn't it? And Princess Anne, a renowned horse lover, likes to do things under the radar and without people like me there.
And for all of those asking last week about Rebecca's lovely starry dress, that was an old number from Marks & Spencer. As always, more fashion links in the description below. We love hearing from you. Keep leaving your questions in the comments or write to us on social media at Mail Plus, or you can always email us at palace@mailplus.co.uk. And with that, it's montage time. This week we're looking at the shared fashion sense between the late Diana, Princess of Wales, and the new Princess of Wales, Catherine. That'll take you to the end of the show. Just time to say thanks to my guests, Rebecca English, Basha Briggs, Charlotte Griffiths, Richard Eden, and to you, as always, for watching. I'll see you next week.